Chapter 7 tracks the kind of schooling that you and I are familiar with right back to its original production center, which was the militaristic state of Prussia in northern Germany. And from Prussia, delegations from all over the world, east and west, came to see the Prussian miracle, where a small, poor country could produce profitable factories, and in particular, a very well-disciplined and formidable army, simply by passing its young citizenry through forced schooling. And from Prussia, Horace Mann returned to the United States, and Japanese investigators returned to Japan, and they installed the Prussian system where it would do the most good from the managerial point of view. In 1935, at the University of Chicago's experimental school, this is the epigraph for Chapter 7, The Prussian Connection. In 1935, at the University of Chicago's experimental school, where John Dewey had once held sway and made his reputation, the head of the social science department published an inspirational textbook called The Life and Work of the Citizen. In its pre-publication edition, and this is the one I'm talking about, if you get the publication edition, what I'm going to tell you about will have been muted. The title page clearly shows 4 interlocked hands interconnected to form a swastika. And the markings throughout the book for the chapter divisions and also for inter-chapter divisions are done with the fascist emblem, the bundle of sticks held by an eagle. By 1935, the Prussian pattern and Prussian goals had embedded themselves so deeply into the vitals of American institutional schooling that hardly a soul noticed that the traditional purposes of this pedagogical enterprise were being abandoned. If you remember from another part in this film, the traditional purposes were to develop good people, good citizens, and to make each individual his or her personal best. Those were replaced by a 4th purpose that comes to us directly from Prussia, and that is that school would be an assistant to the economy and to the government, and therefore school children should be looked upon as human resources, not as individual spirits. I'm sure that to no one watching this will the term human resources not be familiar. That was the Prussian outlook on people. Chapter 8 nails the origination of forced schooling in the fashion that we have it to coal mines and the coal mining powers. A dramatic shift to mass production and mass schooling occurred in the very same moment in history, and they are definitely intimately related with one another. Mass production actually isn't really possible, certainly not the way we conceive of it, without an endless source of energy, which absolutely prior to coal was not available anywhere in the world. Winds come and go, water ebbs and flows, but coal power can go on at a steady rate around the clock. Suddenly mass production truly became possible, but to have people effectively work at mass production, and even more importantly, consume the usually somewhat inferior standardized products of mass production, you have to have a different kind of human being than through the British out of the United States and were working for independent livelihoods in this country. This chapter, chapter 8, is called A Coal-Fired Dream World. A dramatic shift to mass production and mass schooling occurred in the same heady rush. Mass production could not be rationalized unless the public accepted massification. In a democratic republic, school was the only reliable long-range instrument available to accomplish this. Older American forms of schooling would not have been equal to the responsibility which coal, steam, steel, and machinery laid upon the national leadership. Coal demanded the schools we have, and of course oil, which displaced coal in the center of our affections also. And so we got these schools as an ultimate act of economic rationality. Chapter 9 deals with the kind of mentality which evolved in order to make efficient the heavy use of machine interventions in human life. It goes by the seemingly harmless expression scientific management, and between 1890 and 1920 it was as close to being a national religion as anything you could imagine. Time and motion studies, which we have with us today, that determine that if a woman keeps her elbow at this angle rather than this angle, she will produce 20% less assembled pieces on the production line, is just one of the hundreds and hundreds of relics of the scientific management period we have with us. What people who are knowledgeable about this usually aren't knowledgeable about is it didn't stay in the production arena, in the industrial arena, but it leapfrogged almost immediately into the churches, into the schools, into every aspect of American life. Managers came to judge themselves, and others judged the managers on the basis of how scientifically they managed.